Hello Grumpies. So this is my off-the-cuff reaction to episodes 3 and 4 of Amazon's Rings of Power. Though I should probably say up front that it's really only a reaction to episode 4, because I didn't watch episode 3. I was so bored by the time I got to the end of episode 2 when episode 3 come along. I scrubbed through the timeline on Amazon Prime like you do, and I saw that there wasn't a single scene that featured Elrond and Durin. So I didn't actually watch episode 3, because I thought, well, there's nothing in that I want to see. So episode 4, I kind of caught up with where things were. And the big problem with this show that I can see from what I've seen so far is it calls itself The Lord of the Rings of Power. But only about 1/4 is actually about the Rings of Power. If you make a show that's called The Rings of Power, your expectation is what? That it's going to be a show about the forging of the rings. 3 were given to the elves, 7 to the dwarf lords, 9 to the kings of men. You think that's what it's going to be about. That's not what it's about. It's about GUYLADRIEL and her obsession with Sauron because he offed her brother. So that's a bait and switch. It's a bait and switch as far as I can see. So from episode 2, GUYLADRIEL was in the middle of the ocean, floating about, somehow gets picked up by this geezer, ends up on a raft, and turns out she's ended up in Numenor. Now, Numenor was Tolkien's version of Atlantis, and when Morgoth got done in, Sauron caused the geezers in Numenor to rebel against the Valar, is it? Anyway, Sauron's responsible for destroying Numenor and it sinks, which is why they get the flashbacks and the Palantir and all that. So that's one plot line, GUYLADRIEL in Numenor. Then there's the Hobbit girls and Gandalf CATWEAZLE. There was none of them in episode 4, which is great because I've got no interest in that neither. Then the other plot line is Black Legolas and the orcs, because this elf geezer is obviously Legolas Mark II, only he's black. And then there's Elrond and Durin, who are the only ones who are actually doing anything in this show that's connected to the Rings of Power. Like I said, it's bait and switch on a grand scale. I don't know how many episodes of this thing there's meant to be, but when you got 4 plot threads, well, there's 5 really, isn't there? 5 if you include the Artful Dodger, who's got the Death Sword or whatever it is that he's got. I don't bloody know. So you got 5 plot lines, only one of which is actually concerned with the Rings of Power. That's the title of the show. They call this the Rings of Power, but it's got the Lord of the Rings above it. Why? Because they want to draw people in, not just people who like Tolkien, but people who love the Jackson films. And they ape the Jackson films. In terms of style and visuals, they're clearly trying to emulate the Peter Jackson films and say that this is in the same universe, or a version of that universe, if you like. The little glimpse that we got of Sauron in episode 1, he's got the same kind of helmet that Sauron's wearing in the prologue in Fellowship of the Ring. But this isn't Jackson TV. This isn't the Lord of the Rings TV show. This is girl power. This is the Rings of Girl Power. And it's not even about the rings. Like I say, there's 5 plot lines. Only one of them is actually concerned in any way with the actual Rings of Power that's in the bloody title. The big problem is, well, one, they're telling the wrong story. Nobody's really interested in GUYLADRIEL and her obsession with finding her brother's killer. It should be about the forging of the Rings of Power and all the manipulation and all that went on, and there should be at least one character saying, actually, I think this is a bad idea. No, it's a great idea, it'll be fine. And then, of course, the inevitable happens, but that's not what we're getting. We're getting the Rings of Girl Power. And GUYLADRIEL, God, she is so up herself. She's a Tolkien Captain Marvel. That's who she is. She's Captain Marvel. She's so up herself. She's completely unlikable. She's got no sense of humour. Rule number 1 of screenwriting: make your hero likeable. GUYLADRIEL's not like. There's nothing likeable about this girl. And if you don't like them, you don't invest in them. And if you don't invest in them, you don't care what happens to them. This is why I don't give a monkeys about anything in this show apart from what Durin and Elrond are up to, because they're the only ones who are actually doing anything related to the title. I mean, why didn't they just call it Middle-earth, or J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, or why didn't they just call it Tales of Middle-earth? Why did they call it the Rings of Power? Well, we all know why they called it the Rings of Power, because it's a bait and switch to pull in people who love the Jackson films and then do what they always do, give them something else. Give them something they don't want and they didn't ask for. So we're 4 episodes in. This show is so boring. Like I say, out of 5 plot lines, there's only one that's actually relevant to the title. There's only one I'm really interested in. And the best thing about this show, Arian's tits.